Hi, welcome back to my channel. I want to do a video about what being in debt has taught me, and because I feel like this is just, it's sometimes nice, like I feel like the subject of my channel is always like this sort of like strapline which I then go on and ramble about, and I definitely think that being in debt is, I swear, like God works in mysterious ways, and I definitely think that like sometimes the biggest lessons can come out of situations that you didn't expect. And so yeah, wow. And that being said, I definitely think being in debt actually, and actually somewhat being, I would call it, financially abused, not that I would choose for that to happen, or I think that is financially just, but I feel like I definitely came from a household that was upper middle class, or kind of, yeah, I'd call it upper middle class, or sort of middle class at least. And I then ended up moving, like I ended up, you know, not having quite the income for a middle class. I think middle class is about 25 grand and up, so I have never earned that amount of money. I think being a support worker, my income didn't make that. So ever since being an adult, I have not been middle class. I'm moving out, and so I think like my financial mind was still with the middle class, because that's kind of what I was exposed to growing up. Like I wouldn't say I was a spoilt child, but I definitely felt like mentally, I actually felt often like money was honestly a thing where I felt like things were compensated for because of money. Like, yes, I may not have, it sounds like a massive thing and a massive weight of relief, and it is, when you've got money from in your family and you don't have to worry. Honestly, I didn't have to worry about things like Christmas presents. I knew I was going to get them. I didn't have to worry when I needed a new outfit. I didn't have to worry about going on holidays. Particularly, we didn't go on loads of holidays, but we would manage a European holiday most years, and going out for meals and stuff. It was never an issue. There was never pressure. Honestly, I didn't understand the value of money because of the fact these things came so easily to me. But I definitely think there's always a backside to it. I definitely feel like for me, money still was a burden, because I think subconsciously I knew other people were struggling with money, and to be honest with you, I always felt like my place was with the working class. I know it sounds a bit weird, like being like grouping that together, but I definitely feel like being in middle class was not something that I necessarily, I'm not saying I should strive for being working class. I don't think I'll come out of that though, I'm not gonna lie. And I'm okay with that, because I'm one of those people where if I have the money, I'll spend it. Firstly, I know that I don't want to work in an IT job to make 30 grand a year and work a 9 to 5 week and work in an IT job. So if I become a millionaire for some reason or something like that, that's one thing. But when it comes to actually making an income, I'm definitely one of those people where I like to know, like after learning about budgeting later in life, I'm definitely one of those people where if I know money's coming in, I can budget for that, and then I can spend what I can spend, and I don't want to have too much money because it feels like an excess to me, because I'm one of those people where I honestly like moderation when it comes to money, because I'm one of those people where I am like an impulsive spender, and that's fine in moderation. But when you grow up middle class and you have a joy for spending, it's difficult, because I feel like it's just it's almost, there's too much availability. Like, it's not like it was my money, but you feel the pressure to kind of keep, like, be in that mindset. But I knew internally that it was always too stimulating for me to have that kind of environment, because I always felt like I'd rather just be on an income that I could control. I suppose part of that is the money not being my own. But yeah, I'm definitely, like, I'm fine to work a full-time job. I was there like, oh, like it would be great to just not ever work. That's not the mindset I have. It's that I'm happy to work, but I don't want to work in IT or one of the jobs that is going to pay me 30 grand or above, because I'm not trained for that, and I don't think that I'm willing to put in the amount of effort that it comes to earn that kind of money. And I'm okay with that, because I definitely think whatever I earn, I will spend, and I don't feel like I need that level of money in order to live the life I want, because I think if you're really into going out a lot, if you're really into having high value car, having high value insurance. I think when people have more money, they just spend it on what they want, and it depends what's important to you. And I think, like, if you have more money, like coming from a middle class background, I can say that it's things like when you want, and I know these people are older sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't matter about age, it's just what kind of lifestyle you want and what you go into. And I think if you come from a higher income family, you spend that money on more time out, more nice holidays, a nicer car, nicer insurance, you go shopping more often, you don't worry about days out, and kind of splashing on things more often, and having that sort of job security of money. And I think job security and money and a stable income, because I definitely think, and to be fair, I have always had this said to me, it's not like, but I think there's definitely an amount of money that you could really do with for basic living, aka that covers your housing costs, that covers your food and clothing and toiletries and bills and lifestyle to a level, being able to have a drink out and have, you know, a meal out every now and again, and days out and stuff that you want and require for your lifestyle. And when you drop below that, it can be, for me, it was a massive life lesson, in terms of learning to budget and learning to accustom myself to the income I actually was in at that time. But yeah, I definitely feel like when you do fall below that line, it can be actually very damaging and it can be very stressful, because your needs and your basic needs, I feel like you turn to survival mode, especially when you run out of money for food and stuff. That can be challenging, especially when you have children, especially when you just haven't got the capacity, or you're worrying about money a lot of the time, and that's something that I've definitely gone through in very recent seasons. So, and I think when you do have a higher income, you just tend to spend it on more expensive things. And then when it comes to as well things like certain things take a massive chunk of money as well. When it comes to paying a mortgage as opposed to renting, your mortgage can cost a lot. I know some people say if you get a mortgage it can be less than a renting, but I definitely think that if you have a certain mortgage, it can take a massive chunk of your income, and you'd be surprised how quickly the money goes on certain things, and higher value electronics and investing in electronics more often, and getting the latest iPhone, the latest this and the latest that. It does go quite quickly. And obviously if people choose to save, that's also another big portion of money that can be taken. And I think it's just a spectrum. What I feel about money is that if you have a higher income, you're obviously going to spend more. If you have a lower income, you're obviously going to spend less. And when you've come from a place of, like me, where you've come from a middle class family to a working class life, it's really has been a life lesson for me to learn more about budgeting and learn more about all that kind of stuff, which I've kind of had to do since having that income, because if I wouldn't, then I wouldn't have learned about it. And I'm not gonna lie, most of my money until I was about 20 actually did go on alcohol most of the time. Even when I was getting quite a high income and spending a very small amount on rent, that money was mainly going on alcohol. I can't lie. I mean, maybe not mainly, but a lot of it was going to go on nights out, and it did, obviously outside of my working hours and stuff in college and whatever. And but yeah, I want to turn to this specific thing, if anyone's still with me here, of financially. I went through a situation. I want to not probably go through all the details, just because it still does trigger me to this very time, and I don't feel I'm at this point to dissipate my anger towards this situation, but I do think that life lessons come in the funniest ways sometimes. I basically had a situation where I was not paid the money that I was expected to be paid in my eyes through what I could see was right and just, and possibly it was me coming from a mindset of middle class and not really looking at people's backgrounds in terms of where they may have come from financially and what they felt was appropriate in order to, and also possibly a point of projection from them, seeing me potentially coming from a higher class background, that I was able to take on some of those responsibilities that I was not planning to have. Because I definitely, still coming from a middle class background, I've definitely learned growing up that you don't take on other people's responsibilities because you have more money. Like, even if you come, and to be honest, the richest people in the world are probably the most selfish people in the world. And I definitely think just because you have more money, it doesn't cause you to have more responsibility to give to others. That's a life choice regardless of your income. And I definitely think it's financial abuse for people to assume that, because it's just not the case. Even when giving to charity, I'm all about giving to charity, even on my income I am at the moment. And when I see sometimes a homeless man and I think, oh, I could give up a tenner, and I get this internal thought of like, the Holy Spirit or whatever the hell else is going to be telling me just give, or maybe it's just, I don't know. But sometimes I just think, oh, I could just give a tenner to that person because they probably need it today. And having homelessness situations in the past, and struggling with food in the past, I know how it feels to feel that desperate, and more than happy to give that person what they want that day if it feels like the right time for me or something. And I'm sure many people feel that way. But anyway, when it comes to this situation, it's kind of taught me to prioritize money less, because even though being on top of your finances can actually dissipate a lot of stress, I've noticed, but I also think that when you're on a lower income, there is often the chance for you to have more worry surrounding money in general than someone who is middle class. Because coming from a middle class background, I definitely think I never worried about money at all. Obviously it wasn't my money, but often when you come from a working class background, you internalize that stress as a unit in your family, and often the children are stressed about money as well, especially when it comes to going to school or whatever. And I definitely was aware of that, but I didn't understand it until I had that same situation happen to me. And I can say that it didn't happen to me until I was an adult. And, you know, I had different issues. I'm not saying like life is perfect in the middle class either, because that's definitely not the case. And but yeah, I definitely felt that, I think it wasn't necessarily that situation financially, but I think it was other priorities that I had come up in my life that caused a priority shift to understand that money is money. Because I think when it's just about like the love of money not being good, especially when you have an impulsive shopping habit, that you can fall into if not moderated. I found that this can be this can be an outlet for me, but it's just important to like not let it take away my money for food, which is fine, and obviously just deal with it the way I want to deal with it, and understand marketing and stuff, that I don't need to actually spend too much money in the shops, because often you don't want to double buy and then you don't want to end up hoarding. I think when you've been a hoarder like me, for cheap things, you realise that you really don't need a lot of stuff, and you don't want to get into a hoarding mindset again and get loads of shit you don't need. So that also helps with my impulsive shopping habits. If I cut off, it may be because my battery is low. But just to end off, so it's been a bit of a rambly thing, but yeah, just in the main, I feel like money is just money, and having money does not buy happiness. It does buy happiness in the sense that you can relax. This is such a well-known thing, but money buys happiness in that it takes away your stresses towards having money, and like having those needs covered brings down your worry levels and makes more space for joy. And I think that is where they say money buys happiness, but it definitely doesn't cover the same spectrum of needs that comes from other things like relationships, like personal care, like stuff like that. And I think the issue sometimes with the working class is sometimes money can be a scapegoat for abuse and for neglect and stuff like that, and say, oh, that family's well off, like they must be doing well and whatever, and they must have the perfect family, where really money can often be a scapegoat and actually a screen for a lot of abuse. So I don't really want to get into that now, but I definitely feel like that can be the case. But yeah, money is money, great to have it, can help, but it's definitely not it's not a top priority in terms of what's important to me in life. I mean, it's a need because of the world we live in. We don't live in, you know, certain areas, and I think it's just about you. Yeah, I think money is fun to make as well. Having a job is great. I love having a job, and I would like to have more money, so I can have more security, but not so much that I can splash it on this and that. I want to splash sometimes, but like, you know, just having enough is really like where it is with money, I find. And yeah, it's been a growing experience for me, so I might watch this week. If it looks good, then I'll post it. But thanks for listening.